Defending Israel with David Harris on JBS is made possible in part by a generous gift in memory of Eric and Mira J. Spector, the Paul and Lynn Late Family Foundation, To Life, to Love, Barbara and Bob Goodkind, the Patricia Worthen Ullman Foundation,
Hello JBS viewers, I'm David Harris, and this is Defending Israel. This week I'm particularly honored to host as our guest Amos Yadlin, a name that many of you may know, and if you don't, you'll get to meet him over the next 30 minutes. Combat pilot, one of the 8 Israeli pilots chosen to destroy the Iraqi nuclear reactor in Osirak, head of military intelligence for the IDF, Defense Attaché of Israel to the United States, head of the most prestigious strategic think tank in Israel, the INSS, the Institute for National Security Studies, and our guest on JBS. Welcome to you, Amos.
Welcome, David. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Amos. Amos, as we meet in the first days of September, the bodies of 6 murdered Israeli hostages were found. This triggered both enormous emotion, but also a very big division in Israel over what to do next. Can you shed some light for our viewers in the United States and around the world, what you, Amos Yadlin, believe should be Israel's next steps?
Yes. First, don't forget the basics. The basic is that Hamas is a cruel terror organization that attacked Israel on the 7th of October and killed 900 innocent civilians in Israel and kidnapped 240 people, dead and alive. And what happened last weekend, that they killed brutally in cold blood 6 hostages. And they are to blame, nobody else. However, after saying that, I think these people could have been with us by now if the government of Israel would have a different strategy that my organization, which is called now Mind Israel, it's a consulting firm, but helping the government of Israel, the security apparatuses to have a better strategic policy. We recommend in the last 4 months to reach a hostages deal as a mean to achieve the objectives of the war. The objectives of the war were to destroy Hamas, to dismantle Hamas, to create conditions to bring back the hostages, and to bring back the people from the kibbutzim back to the western Negev. After more than 6 months, it was very clear that the hostages cannot be bring back by military force. And the right order is bring them by a deal. Everything that Israel is giving in the deal is reversible. You can withdraw from Gaza, you can go back. You can release a terrorist, you can arrest them. But the hostages have no time, and they will die if we will not do the deal. Unfortunately, we were found that our prediction materialized, and we are losing them. And the government of Israel think that they have unlimited time. We are saying we don't have unlimited time. We are not the United States of America, neither the Soviet Union, that can go to 5 years of war against Germany without any limitation from the international community. We have to see whether the continuation of the war is positive or negative to Israel goals and to Israel stand in the war. the goals of the war were determined in October 2023, and they were the right goals. However, since 2023 was over and we are almost approaching the end of 2024, Gaza is not anymore the core of this war. Israel is in a war in 7 fronts. In the north, with Hezbollah, vis-a-vis Iran that attacked us in April for the first time directly, the Houthis in Yemen, Shia militia in Iraq, Shia militia in Syria, and the West Bank, which in the last week, we were lucky to stop 3 car bombs that if they explode in a neighborhood, in a populated neighborhood, we would have been gone back to the 2000 years of the Second Intifada. So the government of Israel, who is concentrated on Gaza, is making a mistake. We have to look at the whole picture. And a hostages deal is a cornerstone for changing the negative trends in this war of attrition. As a student, as a professor for Israel national security, the main concept of Israel national security doctrine is short wars and decisive victory. This is not what the government of Israel is dragging Israel into. And it's time to change the strategy.
So Amos, many questions from that statement. First of all, what do you think is the strategic doctrine of the current government, and why does it believe that time is on its side?
I have a suspicion that it's not a strategic compass. It's not a strategic objective, it's a political objective. The survival of Netanyahu government is what's dictating a wrong strategy. He is afraid of his own partners from the extreme right, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who prevented a discussion of the day after in Gaza, who prevented any deal, who's thinking about in a way that it will not be so bad if the West Bank will be exploded. In a way, this is their plan, to have an explosion in the West Bank and hoping with the help of God that somehow the Palestinians will disappear. This is not a serious strategy. The Prime Minister knows that very well, but in a way, he is the 102 hostages now. He is hostage to his own ministers. And they have, let me be more trying to understand their strategy, okay? They think the time is playing for Israel. That at the end of the day, Hamas will be destroyed. If they will go to a deal, Israel deterrence will deteriorate because Hamas will survive, and then Hezbollah will attack, and then Iran will attack. I think it's nonsense. The Israeli deterrence collapsed on the 7th of October. However, it is now coming slowly back. Gaza was destroyed. Everybody saw that the Israeli army is not hesitating anymore from doing a ground maneuver. The Houthis suffered an attack on their port, and somehow they stopped. This is exactly deterrence. Last Sunday, Israel preempted Hezbollah attempt to attack Tel Aviv, and it was very successful. And Nasrallah closed the incident within hours. And death is not with Hamas, the military commander of Hamas. Haj Mohsen Fuad Shuker, and number 2 in Hezbollah, the head of the military of Hamas, the chief of staff, is not with us. Amiya is not with us. So Israel was in July, August, in a place that it could declare victory, strategic victory, and bring back the hostages, which is one of the goals of the war, and say Hamas cannot do the 7th of October again, because the Israeli intelligence have done a huge mistake, but it will not repeat. The Southern Command has done a huge operational mistake, and it will not repeat. And Hamas basically, as a military organization, was destroyed. This was achieved in an impressive way. But to continue this war of attrition, in my view, it is exhausting the Israeli economy. It is exhausting the willingness of the reserves to continue and serve. It's exhausting and taking down to the south the Israeli legitimacy in the war. And it is time to stop. If you don't want to call it a strategic victory, call it a strategic pause to regain your forces, to debrief your mistakes, to be able to cope with challenges that are still around. Hezbollah is still there. Iran is still looking to go to the nuclear bomb. You have huge challenges in the future, and you waste your energy and time in Gaza. Big mistake.
So almost just to pursue what critics might say, the goals after October 7th were the eradication of Hamas. If a ceasefire were implemented today, could Israel say that Hamas was eradicated, number one? And number two, another goal was to ensure that Hamas would not be the governing authority after the Israeli operation. Are we at a point where we could say that Hamas would not be the operating authority after a ceasefire deal?
Okay. Nobody say eradicating. Eradicating is a term that I haven't read anywhere. I read the term dismantling the military power of Hamas and dismantling its government position in Gaza. The first goal was achieved. Hamas as a military entity is not exist. It exists as an underground insurgency forces that cannot danger Israel unless you occupied Gaza. It's basically a crime organization now. It's not a military that was built in 15 years with battalions, brigades, rockets, and all kind of a military. It's not there. It was destroyed. On the governance, you have to bring a substitution to Hamas. And the government of Israel refused to deal with the day after, refused to offer an alternative governance in Gaza. They don't want to hear about the PA, and I don't blame them. The PA is corrupt. The PA is not legitimate. The PA is paying terrorists, pay for slay arrangement. But there was, again, I published it in November, say find a different mechanism. Technocrat Palestinians supported by a coalition of Arab countries, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Egyptians, the Moroccans, the Jordanians, and bring to Gaza another government. It was not done because, once again, anything that has to do with Palestinians is banned and stopped by Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. And when you have a vacuum and you don't want to have an Israeli governance in Gaza, you don't want to occupy another 2 million Palestinians and take the responsibility for them, then in that vacuum, Hamas as a governance is still there. You're absolutely right, but this is because of a wrong policy of Israel.
Let me shift gears for just a moment. There's much discussion about the Philadelphia corridor, the border between Gaza and Egypt. From your perspective, does Israel need to maintain a presence there even post a ceasefire? Or can Israel withdraw with keeping its options open thereafter?
It's once again, it's looking in a straw at one problem when you're ignoring the whole Middle East and the whole war and the whole 7 fronts. If you need to choose between the hostages and Philadelphia, I personally choose the hostages because I can go back to Philadelphia. Unlike the prediction in Washington, D.C., that it will take 2 months to take Philadelphia, it will take 2 months to remove the population. There will be hundreds of Israeli soldiers killed in the Philadelphia. There will, in Rafah, there will be 10,000 of Palestinians. It was done smoothly, quickly, almost without any casualties. So if we want to go back after the deal, we can do it. But I'm saying it's a wrong presentation of the choice. The choice is not Philadelphia or the hostages. It can be both. And Philadelphia can be dealt from the other side of Philadelphia, from Egypt. If you reach an agreement with Egypt and the US to build an underground blockade, underground wall. You know, on the 7th of October, Hamas attacked Israel from the air, on the ground, by destroying the fence above the ground. They were unable to penetrate the underground wall that was built there in the last 5 years. And there is good sensors there, and there is good physical blocking of all the tunnels. It can be done on the Egyptian side. And if the Americans and the Egyptians are so eager that Israel will withdraw, they offer to deal with it from the other side of Philadelphia. So then you can have both. You don't want to be in Philadelphia because it was promised to the people of Israel in the Bible. You want to be in Philadelphia to stop smuggling. And stop smuggling you can achieve by being on the other side with the right underground wall. And then you achieve both. You bring the hostages, and the problem of rebuilding the Hamas military power is solved by having a wall along the Egyptian side. And we don't know whether Hamas will control Gaza in the future, because nobody will rebuild Gaza if Hamas is there. They need $50 billion to rebuild Gaza. Who will give Hamas this money? And Israel have to insist that rebuilding of Gaza is depend on Hamas not controlling Gaza, or at least demilitarization of Gaza. And this is a card that we have for the future, because nobody will give the money. I spoke with many Arab policymakers and leaders. They will not pay the rebuilding of Gaza if Hamas is there. So if Hamas want to live in the ruins without any reconstruction, they will continue to smuggle. This is not a real problem. It's a problem that you can solve if you look at the whole picture and not only on this 14-kilometer road.
Very helpful, Amos. So let's pull back. You speak about the 7 fronts, the 7 conflicts. The common denominator of the 7, presumably, is Iran. Talk to our viewers, if you would, please, about the way you, Amos Yadlin, believe Iran should be dealt with at this point in time, when we're told that it is this close to the capability that we all feared.
Yes, Iran is presenting 2 main problems. One is the nuclear program, and the second is the fact that they are behind all the 7 fronts conventionally, with the money, with the knowledge, with the political support, with all their proxies. And we have to deal with the 2 arms of Iran, and Iran should be dealt with Israeli-American agreement. instead of speaking about JCPOA agreement with Iran, we need to speak on Israeli-American agreement, how to deal with Iran. There were four American presidents that declared the goals that we believe in, that Iran should not allow a nuclear bomb. It was President Bush, it was President Obama, President Trump, and Biden. Each one of them said, so let's agree that Israel and America are fulfilling these goals by having a common strategy and having an operational plan how to implement the strategy. Define red lines. If you don't want to call it red lines, define the parameters that we cannot allow. Define how you deter Iran from crossing these lines. And if Iran will cross this line, what are we doing together? Who is doing what? If somebody don't want to do the whole thing, how we support the other side? And then Iran, which is very careful, which is as a strategy to reach the nuclear bomb, but not as fast as possible, as safe as possible. They will see that it is not safe to go to the bomb. On the regional level, we need to duplicate what happened in the night of the 14th of April. A coalition, US, UK, France, Western superpowers, Arab countries, I will not name them, but Arab countries, and Israel together against an Iranian aggression. And when we all unite our efforts, and the fact that Israel was moved from EUCOM, from the European Command, to CENTCOM, the Central Command, we prepared this operation in the last couple of years by having a network of intelligence, a network of the sky picture, of sharing our knowledge, on exercising together, Air Force to Air Force, air defense to air defense. And it came to the point that even me as an expert, I was surprised from the success. If you ask me on the 12th of April, if 500 projectiles will be launched to Israel, do you believe that 99 of them will be stopped? Say, what have you drank last night? 85, 90, but not 99. So this is an example when all of us see Iran as a problem, regional problem, and conventionally we are uniting our efforts, and operationally we are ready to cope with Iranian aggression. I think we can stop Iran.
Let me come back to the first of your 2 points on your proposed U.S.-Israel, if you will, agreement on how to deal with Iran. You mentioned yourself 4 administrations, 2 Democratic, 2 Republican. Why until now has that agreement, which seems logical and sensible as you describe it, why has that eluded the U.S. and Israel over these last 20 years, or has it?
I think you can divide it to 2 kind of relation. When there was a democratic administration, unfortunately, the trust between the democratic administration and Prime Minister Netanyahu government was very low. And in a way, they went to a fight on Congress 2015. So it's prevented it. On the Republican side, when President Trump came on board, in a way, what I propose have started. And they were coordinated in withdrawal from the deal. However, and this is, I think, a huge fault, they haven't prepared a plan B. Because when they withdraw, they thought that the Iranians will say, oh, they mean business, they are serious. and the Iranians will stay in the deal. But I knew, since I know the Iranians very well, I knew that they will go forward. They will withdraw from the deal without withdrawing from the deal. They will breach it. So the Iranians went forward, more centrifuges, more enriched uranium accumulate, higher level, and the US and Israel didn't have a plan how to deal with it. And that's how the Biden administration found it. They tried to go back to the deal. The Israelis didn't like the idea. So I think we have to start from scratch. If the next president, whoever he or she will be, with the next prime minister of Israel, will agree, this is our goal, let's build a strategy, let's build an operational plan, this may be the only way to stop Iran. Because if you sit in Tehran, you say the following to yourself: the Israelis don't want, they have the will to destroy us. However, they don't have the capability. The Americans have the capability, however, they don't have the will. So what we need to convince them that together we have the capability and we have the will. And then I guess they will stop. As they have stopped in 2003, when they saw what the Americans have done in Iraq, and President Bush gave the speech on the axis of evil, which is Iraq, Iran, North Korea, they say we are next. And they have stopped the plan. They had at that time a weapon group working. And since then, the weapon group is hardly working. But they can go back to it if they will feel that Israel and America are not standing together.
Almost unfortunately, time is not our friend, but I have to slip in one last question for you, if I may. The Abraham Accord countries, the Egypt and Jordan plus 4, seem to have held their relationship with Israel from October 7th until now. Is that a correct assessment, that the relationship with the 6 Arab countries remains vibrant? And secondly,
yes, it is.
And secondly, do you believe that conditions in the foreseeable future would allow for expansion of the Abraham Accords, or are we at the moment in a static position?
First, it's a good news. In spite of a long and bloody war, the Abraham Accord countries decided that from moral point of view, Israel haven't started the war, and they will stay with Israel on not cutting the relation. And this is very important. And it's not only a moral decision, it's also an interest. But in this case, both of them go on the same direction. However, if we want to continue and having an important move forward, which is normalization with the Saudis, unfortunately, this war freezed this effort. And when I'm speaking on a comprehensive strategy in the region, which is not only to dismantle Hamas, which I think we already did, it's much, much bigger, to confront Iran, as we spoke, to have a peace with the leading Arab country, which is a strong Arab leader, together with Egypt, the two important countries. If we will have peace with Egypt and Saudi Arabia, we will be able to even advance the core issue, which is the Palestinian-Israeli issue. But once again, unfortunately, this government is not possible to move in this direction. It could have been done 6 months ago, a year ago. The Republicans and the Democrats, it was bipartisan, because the Democrats that in the beginning of the Biden administration saw Saudi as a pariah state, understood that they need allies in the Middle East. And if they will not do it, China will be there. So the Democrats also from consideration of price of oil, they wanted it to go forward. The Republicans wanted it to go forward. And Israel missed it because Prime Minister is unable to say, not to state solution even, a political horizon towards the two people living together. Anything that remind a Palestinian issue is blocked by his right-wingers.
Amos, unfortunately, we have to end it there. I wish we had much more time. Thank you, Amos. Viewers of Defending Israel, you've just heard from one of Israel's great strategic minds, a hero of Israel, Amos Yadlin. Thank you for joining us. See you next week. This is David Harris, Defending Israel.